plus at the bottom. One F.
We are live. We're live, guys. Please put the color. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Vugawanele conversation, which is on communicating with purpose. So today we're talking about how do we build strategies, how do we build trust, and how do we create real influence, not only in our businesses, but our personal brands. Today, I am very, very excited to be joined by a person that I look up to so much in the industry, Dr. Pepe Murray. But before I tell you all about who this influential legend is, my name is Sne Vilagazi. I am the CEO and founder of Vugawanele. I am also the host for today. So, our guest today, Dr. Pepe Murray, he is one of South Africa's leading voices on personal and organizational purpose. He's also the co founder and Chief Purpose and Vision Officer at Joe Public. He's South African advertising industry. Pepe also holds a doctoral degree in business management focused on organizational purpose and conscious leadership. He's also a published author and thought leader on how purpose unlocks creativity. Pepe, thank you so much for honoring our invite and for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation where we will be unpacking what purpose really means in our everyday lives. Pepe?
Can you hear me? Morning.
Hi, Pepe. Oh, great. We can hear you. Gosh,
Okay, good.
technical issues. Super, super. I was just welcoming you on today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. So it does seem like I've got a presentation that's up. So let me see if I click on it. I wonder if it's going to, I don't understand the platform so well. So let me quickly see. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk through it.
So I think while you are trying to upload the presentation, I just also want to say congratulations on the recent launch of your book.
Thank you very much. On shelf now, so there's a punt. I'm actually going down to Cape Town. It launched last week in Johannesburg.
Oh, it seems that Pepe is frozen.
That's strange. I can hear you. I can hear you, Sneh.
Pepe? You can hear me very well. Oh, okay. All right. No, I was just saying congratulations on the recent launch of your book. One word. That really, really went well. I was so fortunate to have attended it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I got to gain some of the insights. Yes, I can hear you now.
I changed. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's my network or yours, but I've just quickly changed. I've changed my platform. I hope it works now. Technology is always a challenge. Sneh, can you hear me now?
Oh, I think our internet seems to be a problem.
That's strange. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Shall I start? I've put together the presentation I did at Pulse last week. You're gonna have to just tell me if you can hear me. My side, my internet is strong on my side, so I don't know if it's on your side. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do a quick, let's say 20 minutes, 25 minutes presentation. At any stage, if you don't hear me, just let me know. I know technology always challenges us. I always start my presentations with a few confessions just to break the ice. The first one is that I'm in advertising, which is said to be the second least trusted profession in the world, second to politicians. Then I always share that I have not drank a drop of alcohol for the past, 19 years, and I also don't eat meat. And then at this stage, everyone goes, shame. But I do sell chicken and beer. So Chicken Licken is one of our biggest clients, and so too is the South African breweries. So within that context, the truth that I discovered through my academic journey is that 67% of statistics are made up on the spot, including the one that I'm showing you now, which at the Pulse, when I did the same presentation at the Pulse conference last week, in fact, 2 weeks ago, it was 64%. So the question may then be why you should believe a word that I share with you today. And I'm saying you don't have to believe anything that I tell you today, because I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm actually here to share with you the most profound insight that have found me. I'm turning 58 this year. And this is probably, it's without doubt, the most profound insight that has found me over the last 57 years on this journey through life. Just a bit of an insight. I do these slides, quite a lot of slides, to re-emphasize my words. So at any stage, if you want to take a screen grab of anything that you find interesting, please do so. There is a rub in terms of this insight. Through my research, I found that only 2 in every 100 people will really get this insight that I'm sharing. So they'll take it to heart. You might in the moment go, oh, that's interesting, but tomorrow you'd forgotten about it. 2 in 100 people may remember that. And then of that 2%, only 2% will be able to implement the knowledge. So that's 1 in 2,500 that will really get to see if this knowledge really works, because implementation is one of our Achilles heels. So it's highly probable that this presentation might be a waste of your time. So the book that I've also launched, that Sneh shared early on, is on one word, and it's The Power of Simplicity in a complex world of communication, or in a complex world of business, or just within a complex lives that we live. And I was reflecting on 2025, and I was thinking, if it had been a movie, it was probably directed by Quentin Tarantino. And if I look at what we can expect from this year ahead, and when I created the presentation, it was prior to the war that now exists. There's 195 countries in the world. I think there's about 160 armed conflicts in the world at the moment. And now the new one from the US, and it's attacked on the Middle East. So if I look at within this context what's going on in our world, what we can expect is more volatility. So this VUCA acronym was created when the world came out of the Cold War in the 80s. Stood for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And my take on this is that everything's going to become more volatile, everything's going to become more uncertain, more complex, and more ambiguous. So we can just expect ourselves being more and more challenged by the way the world is moving. And it's within these times I look at the complexity, and I'm asking myself whether simplicity can be an antidote. And this really goes into everything that we do, because I'm very amazed by how busy we are as people, the busyness. And the knowledge I'm going to share came at a significant expense. And it really, when I share this message, my intention is that people really get it. The expense was Joe Public, brand I co-created back in 1998. We've got a lot of partners in the business today. So it's a village that's raising this business still. It's only 28 years old, so that's young for business, actually. I always share with people, I'm very proud that the Joe Public logo is seen more than Coca-Cola all over the world. So no matter where I go, I'm traveling down to Cape Town tomorrow. When I land in Cape Town, if I had to go to the toilet, I'll see our logo there. So our logos in Heathrow, Schiphol, wherever I travel in the world, I see our logo more than I see the Coke logo. And I'm always very proud of it. What happened in the 2008 and the preceding year to 2008, 2009 recession is that Joe Public hit a brick wall. So we faced the doors of bankruptcy. And at that stage, my ambition was to afford a yacht and sail the world. So I really wanted to make money out of creativity. And all I could afford at that stage was a rubber duck. So it was a significant turning point moment in my life to realize everything I worked for did not manifest what I set out to achieve, which was linked to money. Carl Jung is a Swiss psychiatrist, he said every psychic advancement arises from the suffering of the soul. R.D. Laing said the same thing, also a psychiatrist. He said psychological breakdowns are in reality breakthroughs to greater enlightenment. So I look back on the moment, as tough as it was in the moment, and I realized that those moments were gifted to me to break through what my perception of life at that stage was. And I'll never forget, at that stage, I measured all aspects of my life. And it was a very much an assumed assumption of where I was in my life. My health, I know that I wasn't as healthy as I could be. My relationship wasn't that healthy. The business was clearly not healthy. We lost half the business overnight. The finances a rubber duck. And then even as a CSI endeavor where I donated money to an AIDS orphanage, I had to do an introspection and realize I didn't really care about the children. I was doing it more selfishly to feel better about myself, to look good in the eyes of other people. So the intention behind that endeavor wasn't really pure. And it was a real turning point because so many aspects of my life was just not manifesting in the way that I desired. So I went on a deep introspection, another gift looking back, in the moment really tough. And on this date, the 12th of January 2007. So it's almost, what's that? Almost 20 years, almost 20 years, almost 2 decades, 1 year shy of 2 decades. I found my life's purpose. And what was profound in the moment is that it came to me in one word, in a very specific process that I was participating in. And I think why it resonated so much is because I'm in marketing. And at that stage, I was already in marketing for 15 years. So, and in marketing, there is a philosophy, which I'll share a bit later, the person that started that philosophy of the power of defining a brand by one word. And I thought, geez, that's interesting because I'm in essence brand Peppy. So the one word really resonated with me. And overnight, there's this beautiful book called The Art of Possibility. If you read it and you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Not a very thick book, beautifully written, very insightful. And in the book, they speak of these 2 cities that we choose to live in, scarcity and generosity. And I was living prior to 2007 in a city called scarcity. And my internal shift was very subtle, but profound. And based on that shift of stepping more into service of others than into self-service, I saw everything very quickly, within a period of 2 years, shifting in my life. So my health shifted, my family relationship shifted, etc. Business shifted, everything shifted. But then what happened in the years that followed 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, exponentially, things started to expand in my life. To a degree that I realized my original assumption of that my health was 50 was not true. It was far lower. And my original assumption on my relationship was far less. So I had to ask myself, what is going on here? On the same effort and on the same hard work and on the same set of talents, my output exponentially improved. And I built this model over the years, refined it. And this is a very simplistic version of my model. It's more complex than this, but this is the essence of what I want to share, is that we've got this human side to our lives. If you ask people, they'll say, oh, I'm only human. Don't put the blame on me. I made a mistake. I'm only human. We tend to often say, I'm only human. And on the human side of the system, of our systems, we have a body and a soul, personality, our will, our want, our egos, my human name, Peppy. And this side of the system is very much the serving of the self. It's got a human name, the image of man, it's called, image of woman. And it's our conditioned nature. It is everything that happens around us from childhood that conditions us to become who we are in adulthood. And it's what we do. But we are much, much more than only human. We are human beings. That's the true name of our species, human beings. And just like Joe Public, we call Joe Public Joe, we tend to shorthand. So we forget about the beingness. So on the other side of the model, I then brought back this idea of being. And the being our image of God, something greater than us, outside of the context of religion or within the context of religion, whichever way you want to see it. And this is our spiritual intelligence. This is more our heart, below our head, what's happening down here, our wisdom. Because the brain is all conditioned, The intuition comes from a deeper place. And this is our spirit and our source of light and our greater cause and our true creative nature. And it's about serving others. So this side of the system within the same personality, is this being side of ours. And when I look at nature, I realize that the sun doesn't make vitamin D for itself, or rivers don't drink its own water, or apple trees don't eat itself. It just gives in abundance, and nature is truly abundant. So our being side is truly abundant, but we don't tap into it. And this is why we do what we do. But we don't often take the time to interrogate this. And this is how we create lighthouse people that really stand out in the world, is tapping into the why we do what we do. And this is how we create lighthouse brands. I read an article by Jane Goodall a long time ago. I think it was 2009. And she said, just like humans are human beings, monkeys are monkey beings. And it really hit home. I thought, geez, that's a very interesting insight. Just like humans are human beings, monkeys are monkey beings. And the first thought that popped into my head, I asked myself, can a business be a business being by that argument? Or is it just a business? Is a human just a human, you know? So can a business be a business being? So the business side is the bricks and mortar and the personality and, you know, the serving of itself, and it exists to make money, but maybe it's got a beingness, which is its source of light, which is a greater cause of serving others. Maybe there's something bigger behind the business. And I overlaid this model onto a business of a friend of mine, which he's subsequently sold, but a really wonderful business called Sorbet. I've never checked this with him, but just as an example, like if I look at the brand Sorbet, the human name, I could assume, if I just use my brain cognitively, that the beingness of the business is beauty, because that's what it does. But as I just showed, the what is on the left, and I'm looking for the why. So I might have to dig a bit deeper than beauty. And if I dig a bit deeper than beauty, I might find that when people go and engage with a brand at a deeper level, they're actually seeking confidence. So a good pamper, a good talk, a good shave, a hair wash, speaking as a man, going to Sorbet Man, like maybe my hair trimmed, and I might leave feeling a bit more confident because of the way I look or that I've been treated. So the why of the business could be confidence, and a far more richer territory to engage in if I wanted to market the brand than just doing it about beauty. If I look at Joe Public's original reason for being, why we existed, unconsciously without this knowledge, it definitely was to make money. That was our intention, which maybe was not that noble, you know, very self-serving. I just want to make money, buy a yacht, very selfish. How we did it is through creativity. So that's the why and the what in the model. And that led to bankruptcy. So because I had it at such a deep level experience, I really resonated with this. But if I actually look at this business called Joe Public, the human name, if I just cognitively wanted to say, well, what's its being? I could have assumed it's creativity, but that's what we do. So that should be on the left. Why we do what we do turned out to be growth. So we really dug deep to find this insight. Very interesting when you find this one word at the heart of a business, at its essence, or in your human life, defining it becomes much more important. So we define growth as to serve the growth of our people, our clients, our country, and our world through the greatness of creativity. And we change what is called the bottom line, which is our greatest obsession in this world we live in, finances, and we replaced it with purpose. And it was interesting how the vision and the values and everything started changing and following the directive of this strategy called purpose, the process, the systems, the marketing. That changed our market share, and it led over time to a more abundant bottom line. And we measure everything we do. We measure the greatness of our creativity as a business, because that is what we do to deliver on our noble intention of serving the growth of our people, our clients, our country, and our world. And we saw over time that this approach is what led to us literally rising from the ashes and reaching the top of our industry locally, but realizing also that we flat down to earth because we are not even close to achieving what we have set out to achieve as a business. Al Ries is the founder of brand positioning. In his seminal book many years ago, 30, 40 years ago, he wrote about a brand should only own one word in the minds of people. And what's interesting, when I look for brands to own one word in the minds of people, to a level of 70% plus. So if I ask 100 people, 70 out of 100 should say the brand stand for that. If I ask them, what does this bank stand for? They should say 70. I can only find 2 brands that can be defined by one word. Maybe other people can mention more, but Volvo being one. I haven't seen data on it that factually give me 70% plus will say safety. But often when I present it as one of the brand, people outright say safety. Another brand's a local brand called Woolworths, and Woolworths actually did a study where they showed that 70% plus people know that it stands for quality. And when I look back at the founder in 1931, Max Sonnenberg, actually in his original statement to provide high quality goods at reasonable and affordable prices, but he had quality in his original intention statement. So if the human or the human name for Woolworths given by Max was Woolworths, the being name was quality from day one. And if you look behind the brand today, they overtly advocate their purpose as to add quality to life. I was quite disappointed that they changed the positioning to the difference, because it used to be adding quality to life, which I think brings the purpose to the fore for the consumer. And there is a danger that over time they'll start standing for the difference. And they should never do that, because quality is their word. How they do that is through customer satisfaction and innovation. So the focus of the business, 100%, the main focus is customer satisfaction, innovation, but what's behind the brand is this notion of quality. There's a stat, 73% sample size of 1,500 consumers in 2024 called out Woolworths, one word, as quality. How many brands can do that? It's an invisible glove that holds the organization together. That was a statement by the then CEO. This is Principal Mukosi Mudavi. He is the CEO, the principal of a school in Soweto, Dobsonville. And when he joined the school, we were already working with the school for 3 years, since 2008. And in 2010, they were ranked 667 performing township school in Gauteng when he joined. And the first thing we assisted him with was a purpose workshop for the school. And I was in the room on the day conducting the workshop with him and his heads of department. There were 8 of them. And the human name is Forte High. When they came up with this word, light. And when Mukosi said light, he whispered it as it came up to his consciousness, that this is what he believes is their reason for being in a township, as a township school in a broken educational system. And they unpacked it as to be a beacon of light academically, socially, and politically. That's their why. How? Through unreasonable excellence in basic education. Unreasonable excellence in basic education, something that does not exist in education in our country. And their slogan became Shine Forte Shine. All the kids came up with a slogan for the school. And today they consistently rank top 10. They were number 3 2 years ago with 100% pass rate in 2024 and 73% bachelor's pass rate, which is an incredible achievement within the current system. And last year, 257 out of 258 of their learners passed matric. When he stood on the stage making his speech on the 14th of February, it was a Saturday morning celebrating the achievement, he said, "I'm deeply saddened by this result because we left one learner behind." And that level of excellence to me is profound. And if only we can have more leaders of this caliber in our country today. If I look at our Springboks, it's another lighthouse brand for me. That's their human name. I could argue that their beingness is hope, and that they exist to give South Africans hope. How they do it is through the power of winning. So it's just some thinking I'm sharing on this human being model for you to really think about. Final few thoughts I want to share. Whenever I speak to marketing, there's an elephant in the room, and it's called the incessant waste of media money in our industry. You know, to run commercials out there in media is extremely expensive. If I look at the growth of digital media, 20% year-on-year growth in South Africa, 18 billion is spent on digital at the moment per annum. Traditional has reduced to 27 billion, so a total of 45 billion spent in our industry. Orlando Wood System 1 research out of London, global research. I think it's 3 years ago, I saw the research in Cannes. They were presenting there 93% of $750 billion of advertising is wasted. It's ineffective. So I have to assume that statistic correlates to our industry, that 93% of 45 billion is potentially wasted in a country where most people don't have the financial means to put a meal on their table. And to me, that is not acceptable. To me, our industry is in a creative crisis. If I look, when I joined 35 years ago, 60% of what we did was long-term branding, 40% was short-term sales driven. That was the model originally. Today, we are in the business of busyness. There's just lots and lots, thousands of small little tactics that no one even speak to. So this picture has changed, possibly even worse than what I'm showing yet. I'm being kind of nice, 10% long-term brand building. I would argue it's more like 2%. And 90% is short-term sales driven. So it's this obsessive, just creating content and content and content that no one even absorbs. Less than 1% is worth writing home about. If I just follow what's on the social space, not much is spoken about the work that we do. We wrongly assume that creativity is an art form. It's not. Art is a subset of creativity. To me, art, singing, dancing, the art forms, painting, are a subset of creativity. Creativity, to me, is the ability to think, to critically think. And the truth of the matter is that 2% of people think, 3% of people think that they think, and 95% of people would rather die than think. I'm not sure if that's a true stat or just a nice way of saying something provocative, but it is interesting to see how little thinking there is in the world in general, which could make that stat true. We are living in the age of the challenger. Our country is a challenger brand. If you are number 2 in the market, you are a challenger brand, 2 or below. In fact, I would argue if you're number 1 in the market, you should be a challenger brand. That is how challenging our environment is. People no longer buy what we are selling. They buy what we believe in. And this way of finding the essence of the brand is a way of finding your belief and building everything around that belief. And to me, if I look at the most valuable media space being available to us, is the space between the consumer's ears. And to penetrate that space, what would be the strategy? The current strategy is we just do more and more and more and more. And we do thousands of little tactics. And we think the more we do, maybe we will start having more. And the more we have, maybe one day we'll be happy. Whether that is with our jobs, whether that is with our market share, our sales, or with our lives. This is the status quo of the world, and it's not really manifesting our desired dreams. The new way, based on the beingness of business, the beingness of human beings, is to find your be, to define the one word at the heart of your brand, at the heart of your life, your true reason for being. And once you have that, you have your strategy. And then you everything you do it according to what that be is. So if my being is quality, everything I do, the way I brush my teeth, will be with quality in mind. So I do everything based on the one word. I might even do less, but I'll do it with a higher level of excellence, much higher. And what I found is if you just get the be and the do right, you start having everything you want almost instantly from the day you operate in that way. So that is what I want to share. Snare, over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Pepe. So many golden nuggets in the presentation that you shared. I was furiously scribbling notes because I can imagine I have questions, and I'm sure our audience has questions. But I really, really love the insights that you shared. I think, Pepe, the first thing I want to ask you, right? So many of the people that are attending this webinar, they deal with leaders who often put pressure on them. Yes, purpose is powerful, but then leaders are always pushing for the results. So you had mentioned there was a scale to measure purpose and how it impacts on the bottom line. But could you please touch on that once again? How do we get these tangible results from being purpose-driven?
So in my experience, what I'm seeing is we put the pressure on that which we can't really control. So we put the pressure on the market share or on the KPI, the sales numbers. That's where we put the pressure. But all of those are byproduct of something else, you know. So can you hear me? Sneh, can you hear me?
Yes, you were fading a little bit, but I can hear you clearly now.
Oh, that's so strange. We obviously have a bit of a
network issue this morning.
Issue today. I really hope you can hear this. So what I was saying, and just shout when you can't hear me. But
Okay.
Of course, money is the lifeblood of organizations. It really is. It's the lifeblood. That blood must flow just like it must flow in our bodies. But I would never wake up in the morning and think I must make blood as a human being. Now, I know blood's important to go through my body for me to live, but I don't wake up thinking I must make blood. So money is the lifeblood of our businesses. We cannot discount the importance to the existence of our businesses. But we don't wake up every morning thinking we must make blood. In business, we do. We put the KPI pressure on the wrong side of the organism. So when I showed you Joe Public's purpose, but how we bring it to life is through the excellence of our product, through the greatness of our product. That's where we put the pressure. So we put the pressure on the excellence of our product. That is what we measure. So we measure the caliber of our product. We've got a horizontal 8-point scale for the excellence of creativity. And we've got a vertical 8-point scale that actually takes the client's KPIs, which are sales driven. But what's behind that intention and that drive is the intention's different. Our intention is we focus on that aspect of our business to grow our people. Because the better our people, the better our work, the better we serve our clients. The happier our clients, the more our relationships stay intact, and the longer we have their revenue flowing into our system, the more we can serve our community, internal as a business, and also the schools, and also create jobs. So it's a virtuous growth cycle that we've created around our purpose. So long story short, I think we put the pressure on the uncontrollable matrices where we should put it on the controllable matrices. I can control the level to which I service my clients. If it's at this 5, I can try and get it to a 5.5 and to a 6. I can control my product excellence. I can control a lot of the things that I offer as a service. I can't control the outcome. So I don't really understand why we put so much pressure. I'm not saying it's not important that it delivers that, but it's secondary. It's a byproduct.
And I love what you're saying, that you incorporate that into your KPIs, which shows that it starts from a leadership perspective and then it trickles down, because if leadership has not bought into it, then it's not going to resonate internally and externally to stakeholders. But I also love the intentionality behind it, that, it has to be consciously inserted and measured within the business. We have a question from Tony Gomede. Tony is saying, thank you, Dr. Pepe, for the insightful presentation. I am very interested for your advice on how to intentionally move from the financial and ego focused in your brand to be more meaningfully impacted and within one's purpose in contributing. Yes, we start by desiring to make money. However, our being, as you have explained, is the location of our purpose. So how do we move from financial
Beautiful.
to ego focused? And I'm not sure whether you touched on that in this answer.
I got it. That's a beautiful question. Thank you for that. That's a really great question. When you do a doctoral study, a master's, you're taking knowledge that already exists. For doctorate, you have to find a gap in the knowledge that already exists and bring something new to the table. What I was very interested in, the subject of purpose is disappearing a little bit at the moment because I think the world is in turmoil, and also people are not seeing results from this approach. But since 2010 till, I would say, 2010 till 2022, it's the biggest subject in business in the world. The amount of McKinsey studies on purpose is insane. The amount of studies in general on organizational purpose is massive. The evidence that it's a better way of doing business is huge, but no one implemented. No one actually brings it to life in business to the level that it can be brought to life. And my question was, why? And what I found was the work in terms of purpose does not start with a business. It starts with the leaders. So if a business has, let's say, 10 leaders on a board of 1,000 people company, and those 10 leaders aren't each crystal clear on their own personal one word and what it means and living it, they cannot implement it into their business. So your question was, how do we move into the state of replacing the obsession with finances, understanding that money makes the world go round? I'm a capitalist, so understanding it, but I strive to be a conscious capitalist. I want to use money for good, because money is the root of all good, not the root of all evil. So the first step is to find your own personal beingness and to start living your life according to that strategy on a personal level. Only then can you start bringing that thinking into a business. And that was the insight from my doctorate, and that really excites me because Joe Public has a purpose, but we're probably living our purpose 5% of its true potential. And on 5%, we've built a pretty significant good business. Is it a great business? Maybe not yet. But that's on 5% of this approach. Can you imagine what we can do on 10% and eventually on 15 or 20%? So the starting point is the inner journey, which we are so afraid to go into, that we're so afraid to interrogate our inner demons that it takes a massive breakdown to force me to do it. So I'm so afraid to deal with my childhood trauma, it takes me to go bankrupt and my relationship to fall apart and my health to fall apart, to go and really look for insights, which are all within ourselves. So everything rises and falls in this world on leadership. And ultimately, every single person is a leader. You're not just a leader because you're the boss in a company. You could be a leader in your household. If you're a single woman or man living on your own, you are a leader of your own life. So we abscond ourselves from leadership because we're not attached to a position. That's not the truth. We are each leading our lives. And I think I'll tell you last thing on finding your beingness. That's the way you unlock true responsibility for the first time in your life. That's the way I unlocked true responsibility for the first time in my life. That's the time I started taking responsibility and going, this is my life. I'm responsible for it. And it's been a beautiful journey. I've got a lot more work to do. I'm a much better leader I was 18 years ago, but I've got some serious flaws.
Well, I guess we're all a work in progress, and that's what makes us human. I'm wondering, Pepe, bringing it closer to home, we've got marketing professionals here and people that work within various departments within organizations. To make it practical, where do we start then when we are building campaigns? What comes first when we think of purpose and purpose-driven campaigns? Do we start with the strategy? Do we start with the story? Do we start with the execution? Where exactly do we start?
I'm going to make an example out of a school called the Waldorf School System. It's a private school, very alternative to the normal methodology in schooling, and they are losing sales. because the kids are dropping out, going to the more traditional schools, and they're not getting intake, so they are in decline in terms of market. So they consult with me, and they tell me we must do a campaign. And I'm saying, okay, what do you want to say in your campaign? Like, what do you stand for? No one knew. 11 executives didn't know. I did some work quite a few years ago with a massive corporation, not that massive, in fact, only 5,000 people, but still 5,000 people in the employ is a pretty decent sized business. And at a board level, I said, what do you stand for? I got 11 different answers. I got each person to write down one word. I've got 11 different answers. Now, if the executives have 11 different answers as to what they believe they stand for, imagine the rest of the 5,000 people in the organization. On top of that, in marketing, we are creating 5,000 commercials every month. Now, how do you compete against that if everything you do says something different? So I think one of the biggest opportunities in terms of marketing to create salience, and that is backed by Al Ries, which is the father of strategy, is to do the work to find out what is the one word that your brand could occupy in the consumer's mind. That will be, if I could wave a magic wand, I will create that one word for every single brand that's on our books as Joe Public. And I will build everything, because ultimately, I actually don't like the word purpose, because it sounds like we need to do CSI. Purpose is strategy. It is what you believe in as a brand. And as I said, people buy what you believe in, not what you're selling. It's a deeper belief. I would unearth that, and I will build every single piece of communication around that one word. Because even on a short-term retail level, there's a way that I can bake into a piece of communication for Woolworths quality into selling bananas at a certain price point. I can build quality in that message as much as I can build quality into a beautiful brand message. And I do think that's where we as marketers can do more work, is to really go the extra mile to find the essence of the brand. And slowly over time, inculcate that into the minds of consumers and create salience. Because ultimately, that's what we want. We want differentiation in the market and attract people through that differentiation. And the last thing I will say, in my experience, that's why I coined the phrase, people buy what you believe in. Because I think communication, language is 7% of communication. 93% happens on a different level. And people can feel that. They can feel when a brand's authentic. So you want to find the authentic beingness of the brand and bring that authenticity to life through all forms of communication, whether it's PR, whether it's through the line, above the line, below the line, digital, in all aspects. And the last thing, now it's really the last thing on this question, where's the golden thread? If you're building over time message upon message upon message upon message, if there's no golden thread, you're not building anything. You're actually wasting money. That's why I think so much of our money is wasted. Whereas if you consistently have a similar narrative baked into your messaging, and it can be distilled to that one word, I think there's huge opportunity for growth.
I absolutely agree with you on that one. And I have seen, in the work that we do with organizations as well, they really struggle, with building a narrative that resonates and that golden thread. Because leadership can have an idea, this is our mission, this is our vision. I'm sure everybody here knows vision and mission, but you might find that at the end of the day, people are going to different destinations because that golden thread is missing. And that is why building the brand narrative first and then authentically doing so matters so much. And that also just sparks another question in my mind. You mentioned authenticity. Now, I have to ask this question, and I know we're nearing the end of our conversation, but immediately I thought AI. Everybody's speaking about AI. So now, considering how much it has now been inserted, and I mean, it's for the greater good, but sometimes we're not sure where to draw the line. Tell me about your thoughts on authenticity, where there is so much AI in what we do. How do we maintain the authenticity?
There's a beautiful, just in terms of LLMs, if I just look at the platforms like a ChatGPT or Claude, let's just talk the language-based, because I really believe language is your most powerful form of communication. I'll give you one example. If you don't know this piece, but you go and research it, there was an Under Armour piece done with Michael Phelps. And it literally is just a collage of him practicing swimming in the early hours of the morning and late at night.
Ooh, you are breaking.
Beautiful piece of work. Now, what makes the work profound?
I'm not sure if it's just on my end.
Oh, am I breaking up again? Oh no. Am I back, Snare? Snare, can you hear me now? Oh no, Snare. Tell me if you guys can hear me.
Okay. So apparently it's me. Apologies for that. As long as everybody could hear, it was on my end. Please continue.
Okay, good. Everyone's hearing me going, Snare, where are you? Oh no.
And I couldn't hear a word.
No, my side is, I'm looking at my I'm strong.
Yes,
but
you're perfectly fine.
I'll just so you can hear this again, and everyone will hear it again. But if you haven't seen a beautiful piece of work done by Droga 5 on Under Armour Michael Phelps swimming, it's just a collage of a person swimming. So it's beautifully shot, but there's no powerful message right until the end. And the words that make it so much more meaningful is, it's what you do in the dark that puts you in the light. So the construct of that is such a beautiful written piece of copy, written out of deep human experience. And it really resonates with you. So firstly, I just want to say I'm going to speak to copy in terms of AI, because to me, words creates meaning, purpose, strategy, those are words, and communication with words holding it together, that's where communication lies in the language. I would advise everyone to go onto YouTube and try and find the MIT monk. He's a venture capitalist, angel investor from the States, very successful business guy, who's now sharing a lot of knowledge on a lot of things. And he does a 17, 18-minute talk on how to prompt these large language machine-based tools that we have now at our disposal, how to prompt them properly. Ultimately, it's just a tool, but I think when the human gives the right input, you turn that tool's answers closer to being human. So my view is, I think what we'll learn over time is that it's just a phenomenal tool, that it's not going to be able to really explain the emotion behind a tear if I had to cry. Like it's going to explain the logical data that it can find all over the world, but it's not going to be able to tell someone that I'm really crying because I'm sad because I lost my father. So the human emotion we will always own. And I do think if we bring that emotionality into the prompting of the tool, it can give us answers closer to human emotion, but it will never be able to take away from our emotion. So I think I will most definitely, I use it extensively for work that lives shorter term. I cannot justify to put my level thinking into something that's going to live for 20 seconds. But if I want to make impact that must live for 20 years, I'm probably going to more use it for research and create my own opinion based on my own human experiences and my lived experiences and my beingness, and not absolve that. And I also think what we're going to see is we're going to see that if you don't love what you do, if you don't really love what you do, because that's where we waste our lives, in jobs that we don't love, because we spend 60% of our wake time in our jobs. And if we don't love those jobs, you could assume that AI will take our jobs, and it will liberate people who don't love their jobs to go and find what they love. But for those who love their jobs, I think we will always stay way superior to wherever these knowledge-based machines can go in future through their advancement. I'm not in fear of it. I see it's a magnificent tool. I've lost Snare. And with that, I think I can't take any more questions. Oh, I can hear Snare.
I think my network is really giving me problems, but I caught the crux of what you were saying, and I believe that our audience caught the crux of it as well. I just want to read the last question, Pepe, because I do see we are running out of time. We've got 3 minutes. And so this is a question from Kamini Reddy. And once you have answered the question, I think maybe, if you have one thing that you would want, more marketers to understand when it comes to building meaningful brands, please close off the question or the response with that. So Kamini says, I love your perspectives on building brands to human emotions. Now, how can we align this to state-owned entities?
The only way, that is my greatest dream. I'll expose you all to my dream. Everything that you hear me say, if you go and look at anything I say, you'll see it is aligned around this perspective of one word. That is my greatest belief. The saying is, seeing is believing. I flipped it, believing is seeing. I hold this belief in such highest regard. I link it to my religion. I think it's actually linked to a higher order, without a doubt in my mind. But these are just my words. Remember, this is my lived experience. So I don't advocate it as the truth, but it's my truth. I think the only way we can bring this thinking into state-owned enterprises, I don't think we have to start at the top. I think if you are in a state-owned enterprise and you're in a section of state-owned enterprise, I would say engage with me offline and let's start working at a leadership level in a department or in a unit or in a sector of state and start plugging into that, because we don't have to start right at the top to get the whole of all our enterprises right, but we can start in a pocket. And I will always be willing to share my knowledge and also my process on defining the one word that a brand stands for. That, going back to the bit of sharing on the Waldorf school, ultimately they found their word and they started linking all schools to that communication, and it became clearer in all stakeholders' minds what they stood for. And just on that work, without much communication, they saw a shift on intake because there were clarity. Because when we half what we say, we half our chance for success. So the more simpler and the more clear we are, the more impactful we become over time. It just makes so much sense for me, but we are just so busy and so overwhelmed that we don't take time to think, and we just keep on running on the treadmill. This approach, I believe, can add value in any sector of our market. I'm very passionate about our country. I'm very passionate about assisting wherever I can help make our country great.
I absolutely love that. And just to throw in a comment from Sipati, who works in language services, she has mentioned the importance of incorporating the mother tongue into communications. I think that is quite a unique perspective. And, South Africa, we are a multilingual country, and language really, really speaks to the heart. Well, we have run out of time. I wish we could continue going on and on and on, but it is 12 o'clock on the dot. I just want to say thank you so much, Pepe, for sharing so much of these valuable insights. And I'm looking forward to, engaging even in other spaces beyond this, since we are in the same field. And that really then brings us to the end of this conversation. Thank you so much. And thank you to our audiences as well for giving us a piece of their time within their busy schedule. And with that being said, please look out then for our next webinars, which will be upcoming. And with that said, I would like to say enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sneh. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Goodbye.